Hi everybody, I'm Dave.
And I'm Will, Crypto Insight UK. Nice to meet you all again.
Again. Yeah, especially after last week's what seems to have been a bit of a
controversial topic potentially in the
yeah. I mean, I think most people didn't realise we were just having banter.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just four mates that we all have our own crypto flags.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good niche to or good thing to discuss even, because most ecosystems are just echo chambers, and we don't really branch out of our own ecosystems enough. And I'm speaking from experience. Is like most people that I speak to, if you're an XRP holder, you aggressively protect your native chain. And I think a lot of people do that. And I think obviously Cardano, from what we talk about, and I think that's one of the points of the podcast. And you can see why, because everyone wants the capital to flow into their chain and their network. And then when it is in there, they have a vested interest in their own chain. So they're obviously going to protect it. But realistically, we are all in the same space, and a rising tide lifts all boats. And interoperability, especially across a few different chains that do different things, which actually is going to take us potentially into something that we talked about earlier. Interoperability is something that is good for everybody in the long term.
Yeah, which is why I call the podcast Interoperable.
I thought that.
Did you not know that?
Know that.
Yeah, I called it Interoperable. I thought it was a decent.
All I knew was that you just called it like fucking hell.
yeah. All you knew is that basically I posted a short of you doing an impression of Cardano being 100 to 1 three-legged horse.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest,
but it has done 100x, so it probably was 100 to 1.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think I decided that the first podcast I wanted to do was with you, Pav, and Mats, because ultimately we spent a long time talking about each other's change. You guys actually probably know more about what's happening on Cardano than probably 30-40% of the Cardano holders out there, to be honest. Purely because I tell you. But it feels like I always use you guys as a barometer, because ultimately you guys are also much more involved with other chains. And the way that you react to what I tell you tells me whether or not it's going to be actually something that people care about or not, right? And ultimately what I can say is that, generally speaking, the blowback that we've had from that previous episode is probably kind of like what I expected. And I certainly didn't help it because of the way that I cut the shorts up. But the point was, I wanted everyone to see this is actually how most of the people view Cardano. Like the way that we, although we were having banter as friends, like it wasn't a serious podcast at all. That wasn't the point of it. The point of it was to sort of show everyone, look, this is actually how most people view Cardano. Now, rightly or wrongly, that is it.
I think it's how most people view most chains, and it wouldn't single Cardano out particularly with that, because I feel like in a lot of ways legacy tokens or Dino coins or whatever, like XRP, is in the same basket. If it's not in the hype, then that's how most people.
Yeah, I mean, I did cut out the part where you said about, we only got off with 50 million from the SEC.
No, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. But this is the thing, isn't it? Like, I think obviously that no context. All those shorts are supposed to be no context. They're supposed to drum up a bit of engagement, I guess. But the point is that we were all shitting on each other's chains. Let's be honest, we were. Because that's the banter, that's what we do.
And they're all shit.
No, but ultimately there's an element of truth there. At the end of the day, it's not like I'm sat here in Cardano right now and everything's hunky-dory, right? In some of the replies, I actually posted back and said, well, if we are really towards the front of the race for mass adoption, then why is IOG asking for basically over 100 million plus to bring scalability, right? Why is it that Charles is also saying we need 140 million ADAs so we can have a decent amount of stable coin liquidity? Why is it that effectively we have nothing to talk about in terms of commercial partners? at the end of the day, like, my argument to people, the Cardano guys that were chucking stuff in the comments, was actually just think about, at the end of the day, like, although you came across in a very bantery way, the core of the matter is true. And if it's not true, why is it that some of the most respected people in Cardano, in the space, are often shouting about, you know, for God's sake, guys, we need more usage, we need more TVL, we need more stable coins, we need scalability. All of these things that we need, a lot of the other chains already have one or two or three elements of it. We don't actually have the best of any class. What we have is promises to get there. And we're a 7-year-old chain and we're still relying on promises. And there's all sorts of reasons for that. And a lot of people will chuck, oh, you know, our selling point is decentralization, right? I'm sorry, but decentralization is not a selling point. It's not a core product. Your core product is having a really good DEX or a really good stable coin or a really good, you know, whatever it is. Decentralization is your added benefit on the top. And that is how the majority of the world is going to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, like, there's a lot of different metrics to measure every different chain by. And as an ecosystem as a whole, I'm going to talk about the whole of crypto there. It's like we haven't really worked out what's valuable yet. Like, between us, like, you could say decentralization may be valuable. You're saying that a specific product is valuable, and they are in their own rights. We haven't worked out the value of what, like, smart contracts are. We haven't worked out the value of what store of value is. We haven't worked out the value of high TPS, low price. Like, we haven't worked out the value of anything realistically. We're almost just still in the discovery phase.
We were talking earlier. You were trying to see if there was any sort of, just out of interest, I guess, any sort of link between, like, your typical DEX's market cap versus the amount of TVL they had. And
yeah, and the example that I gave earlier, because as you guys know, if you read my newsletter or watch my YouTubes, there's no paid affiliation here. It's just something that I've been interested in this cycle. I've been buying ENA as an ETH beta because they have a stablecoin USDE, which is about 4 billion market cap, and for me it mimics what Terra Luna was doing last season. That's what I mean. It's like, laugh or not, Luna still managed to gain a big market share, and then they crashed, obviously, and fucked everything up. But they're a synthetic stable with the things that hit the DeFi sector of ETH, and I don't have ETH exposure, so I want ETH beta exposure. The thing that I think will do well if the ETH ecosystem does well. So that's why I picked them. But I also then looked at Aave as well, and they have, like, in relation to their TVL, like total value locked on chain, it's like their fully diluted market cap is much lower. Like, for ENA, it's like 0.25 of their TVL, and for Aave, it's 0.15 of their TVL. Is like locked on chain. And it's like, we haven't yet put a value to TVL. We haven't put a value to, like, we went to, like, where this conversation came from in the first place. We haven't put a value to decentralization. Like, if it's more decentralized, does that mean it's worth more? We haven't decided that.
I think worth and value is quite subjective. You know, like, I don't. Any particular individual, depending on the country that they're in or their own personal experiences, they'll value decentralization more than somebody else. You know, like, funny enough, there was so I was editing the other day some of the interviews that Nathan and James did at the Philippines Blockchain Week, and one of the guys that they interviewed there was Bitbender, an American guy. Unfortunate name, but obviously I think sometimes Americans, like, they lose the connotations that are there. But it was actually quite a good interview. I mean, it's only like 3 minutes long, 3 or 4 minutes long, but it was quite good, actually. But one of the things that he said was he saw Cardano as being like a chain full of suits. You know,
that makes sense.
Yeah, but he just kind of, like, I'm guessing, I haven't watched any of his stuff, but it seemed like he seemed like very much like a kind of person that was more about the sort of the attention, the exciting stuff. You know, I think that's the thing. A lot of people forget, like, not everyone is in crypto for the serious stuff.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that I discuss a lot. The term KOL, and key opinion leader, is what it is, but it encompasses such a broad range of people, from people who are marketeers essentially, to people who are analysts. And I would say, like, I'm more of a technical analyst. Is where I spend most of my time, is like looking at technicals and my opinion on the technicals, whether it's right or wrong, and relating that to geopolitical world events, these sorts of things. And some people literally just market products for the sake of marketing products because that's what they enjoy, but also because it gets views. Now, not all cryptos can get views. Like Cardano, it's hard to get views on something if you're portrayed to the mass as the suits. Like, how do you get views on that? Like, who wants to go and watch, for example, loads of corporates doing corporate things, whether that is what Cardano represents or not? Who wants to go and watch that, and how do you make content on that? That's a problem.
I wish it was fucking corporate.
But then, for example, though, like Mats, who we had on last week, great. I love Mats. He's completely different to me in terms of what he does as a KOL. He's brilliant at marketing, and there's a lot to market on Solana, especially to people who want to be marketed to.
I went back and I watched. So again, in the comments from the last video, I was replying to people like, like Matt's been doing Matt's was doing Cardano, like positive Cardano YouTube channels content, probably before the vast majority of the current crop that are on there. And I actually think he jumped too soon to Solana, to be honest. I watched. I mean, he's so young. Yeah, he looks so young in those videos. Like, I couldn't believe it, mate. I was like,
I've seen even younger ones of him.
Have you?
Like, he used to have a FIFA channel, and he's like 14.
Yeah, before he had any like bum fluff going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, bless him.
Love Matt.
But yeah, I watched one of the first videos. Like, I just clicked on like the oldest filter or whatever, and the first one was like there's dozens. Yeah. And literally for that period of time, he was just doing Cardano, bang, 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 and you're listening to him, and he just like, and I just there thinking, dude, like honestly, like there is very few communities out there that are more engaging and receptive to quality than the Cardano community for in terms of content.
Yeah,
and I actually feel quite bad because I feel like actually the Mats from back then, like if he'd have stuck with Cardano a bit longer, I think he'd have blown up, mate. I genuinely think he would have blown up. Like,
you have to ask, why did you leave?
Well, he said last week, didn't he? He was like, I found myself just being more into Solana. The NFTs he enjoyed. He said he liked the DeFi, and this is the thing. Like, that I get it. You were the same with XRP. You didn't start off as an XRP maxi by any stretch.
Use Ethereum for a bit, just to go through this. Use Ethereum for a little bit, and you're like, yes, it's an improvement, but it's not a solution.
Beginning of 2021 is when I discovered Cardano. That's when a lot of people say online, like the community, I watched the whiteboard video, technical whiteboard video, and I was like, to this day, I've never managed to watch it all. I'll switch off after a few minutes. I'm not interested. I think I'm not interested because I don't need to be anymore, because I've already gone on this journey of understanding the core principles and the basics and what Cardano offers, or what it should offer. But at the time, what it was, it was costing me $150 just to mint a piece of art I'd created. And I was just like, there's got to be another way. So that's when I started looking. And then I actually came across a TED Talk video, which was Charles in the Bahamas doing a TED Talk video. And it was a very simple sort of explanation of how blockchain can help to bridge the gap between Jeremy, who's like a Westerner, and Mohammed, who's like somebody from Afghanistan or Kazakhstan or somewhere. And the massive discrepancy that the legacy systems have left behind. Whereas like it's not commercially viable for these banking institutions or whatever to or to put the money into giving Mohammed the opportunity to get a decent premium on his insurance policy. So
Yeah.
if anything happens to him, he can get a payout. Do you know what I mean? Like if anything happens to his crop,
Yeah.
he can get a payout.
Yeah.
Like some of these things that help to give you stability in life and help like growth thrives on stability.
Yeah.
Stability and understanding of what's going to be there tomorrow. If you have the uncertainty, like we'll come on to in a bit with what's happening in the world right now, that's when money gets scared.
Yeah.
And it becomes very, very hard to make money. So that's the video that got me into Cardano.
Yeah.
Cardano has at its core some very big potential positives that are built upon the differences that were put into place 7 or 8 years ago, but it's got to deliver it. And the biggest problem that we have is, in all fairness, we focus so much on the technical
Yeah.
and we've completely dismissed the commercial and the marketing and the social.
And that's so important because the general layman, anyone, isn't going to sit down and just watch a technical podcast. And if you want people to come to your chain, use your chain, whatever the chain is. Like I'm massively XRP, but you can't make the fucking content boring. Like who's going to sit there? Just, if you can have the best product in the world, but if you can't sell it, no one's going to fucking use it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Flare Network sounded interesting.
Not my explanation when I've had a few beers though.
Yeah. But I'd never saw XRP as anything other than a hold because of the potential like institutional, like commercial banking, like Swift alternative. I don't know what else is there. Like I know nothing about it. It's not to say there isn't anything.
There's a lot going on, Dave.
I know you guys know more than you certainly brought across about Cardano in that interview, because I've told you all about it. Like Pav kept saying, this guy always talks about Cardano every time we see him. It's like, and I'm not sat there talking rubbish, but it's the same. Like whether I go, like if I go to like any meetup or any event anywhere, it's always the same. It's always somebody who knows nothing about Cardano. Oh, I'm interested. Talk to me about it. Or it's because it starts off as Cardano. There's nothing going on there, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing there? But if we always take the view of, oh, those guys are clowns, right? Very quickly, 99% of the world are just, those guys are clowns. Especially when we're doing nothing about getting in front of people and being one of the first chains that they learn about. We're not even doing that. Token 2049 or any of the events around the world, 95% of the YouTubers out there or content creators have very little time for Cardano. And it's not because they shouldn't do, it's because burnt relationships in the past or just a sour taste.
I just want to fire back on that a little bit as well. I think, like I said a minute ago when I related it to XRP, it's like, I think it's a problem that XRP and Cardano have generally, and I'm going to put them in the same bracket. I think XRP is slightly better in marketing because I think they just got like a larger following from history. But I also think the thing that we lack on is not being in the solid echo chamber. And I think that that a lot of crypto's problem, and this isn't directed at Cardano, but it does create cults. And I'm not saying Cardano are a cult or not. And I put XRP, as I said, in the same bracket. So if that makes you triggered, the word that I'm using, I put myself in the same bracket. It does create cults because anyone who's not within the echo chamber that the majority are talking about aren't favoured and are a cult, and that makes you a problem, and then it makes you more defensive when they want to talk about technicals or whatever. It comes to that border of like, what's a KOL though? Like, is Richard Hart a KOL? Is BitBoy a KOL?
No.
Am I a KOL? Well, yes and no. Like, yes, they market a product, but no, they're not what you want to market a product. Or are they because they get attention? It's what I said to you. You know, when we got these views, that you're saying like, oh, we shouldn't have these. Not that we shouldn't have the comments, but people have reacted like this. I said, in the world that we live in, whether it's right or wrong, any view is a good view. It's like a billboard for your podcast. Like, not necessarily the one that you think you want right now, but if it gets eyes on the product, that's what people want.
I think this is not my problem though. So all the shorts that I did were about no context.
Yeah.
It was just supposed to be a bit of fun. Like one of the ones that I did, which didn't get anywhere near as much as attention as I'd hoped it would, was that is rugby gay.
Yeah.
You know, when you and Will, you walked
yeah.
in, and I caught perfectly the moment where you just sort of sit down, and I just like, have you never thought about, I really want to stick my head between that guy's legs, and you're just like, and then Matt's is like, perfect.
Yeah, but then I think that also comes to something that I think Cardano suffer with as much as XRP do as well. It's like what you think is right compared to what a lot of people want to watch. I think that's why Sol gets so many views. It's like we sit here and think whatever we think about Sol.
Yeah.
But that's not the same opinion that a lot of people share, clearly. Otherwise, they would share that opinion.
There's definitely a need. Like if you were to do a video that's basically 40 minutes of validating why somebody's chain is the best, even if 95% of it is absolute bullshit, that will get a lot of attention in terms of like positive. But then there's a lot of people I see dating, and my intention was not to create fucking drama. My intention was obviously we did that. I know, like I've learned that effectively us four friends, and we have the banter all the time, and I thought it was just hilarious.
Yeah,
I just thought it was, funny.
Good.
You know, somebody said, "Oh yeah, if these guys were just to get educated," I was like, "Guys, you the education's in front of us in Cardano, and you're just not taking it. You're just not. You're not willing to listen to what Charles Hoskinson himself is saying. Like all of these things exist. All of these arguments are currently being played out. All this money from the treasury is about to be spent." Exactly, because Cardano is nowhere near the front of this fucking horse race.
Yeah.
They're nowhere near the front. And it won't be like, and this is the other thing, like the current funding that's in place, when you actually read the presentation, like Laos is not going to be done in a year. Next year, there will be another funding request for even more to finish it off.
I don't even know that is there.
Yeah, Laos is, it's our, well, it was Hydra before, now it's Laos. It's going to be our new... Hydra is a different sort of scalability solution. I'm not going to bore everybody with the ins and outs, but Laos is kind of like parallel block production. Okay. Hydra is like basically splintering off and then having a group of you do your own thing. It's like so. Okay.
Like Sharding or whatever.
Hydra is a bit like having a poker tournament, but having different tables, and people will go to that table like $1,000 each. The winner takes all or whatever, and then you all start to amalgamate back onto that main table again. Yeah. Okay, but somebody on one table, it doesn't matter to them what happened on the other table. Yeah, they know 1,000. They know 10,000 went in and 10,000 comes out.
Yeah,
as an example, there is some pretty cool, unique use cases for that. In the same way there is like for Midgard L2. Big up to Phil, by the way. Phil UPLC, he's great dev. What I like about Phil, by the way, just going off subject here. Phil's a bit like one of the unicorns in Cardano. Not only are they technically pretty gifted, right? But he actually understands the commercial aspects. Like, he's not just the sort of the Russell Crowe beautiful mind fucking genius, but he's actually able to go, do you know what, I am talking shit. Yeah. Ultimately, I can make this like this, but actually no one's going to care.
Yeah.
No, I don't need to do that. I in half the time I can create something that's good enough. Do you know what I mean? To quote Justin Bonds, who, yeah, good enough. So yeah, like there's not many around that I've found in Cardano that are like that. Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to say is obviously trying to crowbar it in. Obviously, we're in the Middle East right now.
Yeah,
and obviously quite poignant is what's happening globally.
Yeah.
And although we don't really want to talk about our personal circumstances, I think it's probably worth sort of talking about where we are in the marketplace and how this whole Iran, USA, Trump, Russia, whole situation's planning out. So yeah, do you want to start giving us a bit of an update on this? Because I know you have a newsletter that we talked about in the last episode.
We did.
There will be a link, by the way, in the details this time, so people can follow it.
Yeah, like I'm no geopolitical expert, and I never claim to be, but I have seen a few geopolitical events play out through my time in finance, which is shorter than maybe most. But if we look at what happens during a geopolitical event or any event, doesn't have to be geopolitical, could be financial scare, could be C-19. If we look at anything that shakes the markets, what normally happens is you have an initial flush out based on hype around the news. And then there's normally a secondary flush out, which makes the price go higher, but a technical indicator that I like to use is the RSI, and the RSI normally puts in what's called a higher low, and price normally puts in a lower low, and that normally comes on capitulation of sentiment in the market, and that's normally when you know a bottom's in. So people say, when's the bottom going to be? What's happening? So Bitcoin currently is about last time before I checked, before I came on the podcast, 101k. It's been down to 98. Where do I think it's going to bottom? Probably between 92 and 97. Could go lower if I'm wrong with what I assessed this situation to be. But normally on that event will come with massively negative news, something maybe around an escalation, or I threw darts on the board to completely guess, because I said no geopolitical expert, but just a significant escalation in the narrative. Price flushes down on that, but the RSI, being the momentum of what people are buying and selling, actually ticks higher low. Like, so you don't go as low as the previous time, and that's when it's a good indicator to pull the trigger on if you've got any capital left on the sideline. And I think that comes between 92, as I said, and 97 for Bitcoin, and for alts probably see a bit more of a flush than that, because Bitcoin dominance has actually increased. It's hit its highs for this cycle in the last week or so as well, which indicates that alts are still losing to Bitcoin. So ETH, we're looking at around 2100, 2200 is what I tipped in the newsletter, and I think we realistically can come down to 1900. And XRP, I tipped 192, and it's bounced exactly on 192 at the minute, but I actually do think it probably comes into 180 somewhere. Based on that bottoming structure that we've just talked about there. And that's something that anyone can apply to any token. I haven't looked at Cardano specifically, but if you look at Cardano, if you look at alts generally, they put the same structure in, whether they fluctuate in percentages or not. They put the same structure in. And normally on the narrative of the news, if the news looks like it's the worst thing you're ever going to see, after you've had your initial flush and the price still continues down, but the volumes like change and the RSI doesn't come as low, that's a good indicator. When it feels awful to buy, it's the best time to buy, essentially, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they always say, don't you, sort of buy when the market's, when the blood in the streets.
Yeah, blood in the streets, even if it's your own blood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even if it's your own blood. Like, you know, we were speaking about this a minute ago. I was, I don't normally do it, but I sort of made a trade based on feelings.
Yeah.
Purely feelings on Saturday. I just wasn't feeling the whole situation, so I just went into USDM. So yeah, believe it or not, although we don't have the kind of stable coin availability that other chains do, there was more than enough the other night for me to, like a 0.5% slippage, for me to take, you know, a fair chunk of ADA and put it into USDM.
Yeah.
Glad I did.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like we were talking before, like, you know, I don't know now whether to stay in that for a while or to start working my way back in again.
Yeah.
I mean, the beauty is people always forget at the end of the day, you know, I might be sort of 10, 15% up right now.
Yeah.
Right. People need to realise sometimes with trading that 10 to 15% is not a problem if you end up making 5.
Yeah.
You know, you've now given yourself room to breathe.
Yeah.
And oxygen is very important in this industry.
And like I've spoken just when I speak to my friends and the people that like I discuss markets with recently, I would like to bring to the attention of like the audience and yourself and myself just to talk to you freely. It's like we are in the period of the changing world order, the fourth turn, and these sorts of times in history where, if we look back in 10 years' time, the catalysts that we've seen recently with Russia, Ukraine, India, Pakistan, Iran, Israel, even though some of them have died down or not, if you look back in 10 years, you could say they were catalysts for a more global conflict. I'm not saying that we are in that now, but I would like to put this on record because I think it's important to remember that the time frame that we're in and the mindset that we're in when we talk. And if you relay that to history, these things happen at the end of a specific world reserve currency, whether that's the dollar. I'm not saying the dollar's ending going to fall off a cliff, but what I do think is there's going to be more parallel payment networks arising, and I think crypto is one of those challenging networks. And I do think that although there's short-term uncertainty in the markets, the upside potential for crypto is astronomical at this point. It's to a point where if you take the macro, I'm talking like M2, you take ISM came out today, ISM came higher than expected, and that normally correlates with a risk on market. So that means like buy-in essentially. If you take that, we haven't seen a new financial system pretty much for like 1,000 years, and we went from like trading to actual currency, and now we're seeing potentially a digital currency. All these things are both aligning in terms of like the micro and the macro for a substantial boom in something that needs less trust, but also needs to solve the problems that we have of the day, which is speed, efficiency, and being able to move value across borders. And I think that all those things are what the whole world's calling out for right now. And whether that's just to store wealth like Bitcoin, or whether it's to make transactions or improve the financial system like all the other alts that we can talk about, like I do think out the back of this, the short-term catalyst, the long-term is substantial to the upside to an effect that a lot of people don't understand because they haven't experienced or looked at history to see that sort of thing.
I think that if there is a downfall of the current system, it should be remembered as the effect of politicizing monetary value. That's what happened when we went to fiat. All of a sudden, you didn't need to have gold as a store, as a backing of your fiat. Basically, money is created or destroyed, and the velocity and destination of that money is all about politics now.
Yeah,
and trust. So I think ultimately, in the future, I think that is going to be where we need to move away from. We need to move away from having people's reliance on value being politicized, and that's where we're going to end up. And whether that be with gold or silver or Bitcoin or both or any crypto, I think that's ultimately where we're going to go.
I agree.
Because people just don't trust politics anymore. As much as any possible thing in our life that we can unpoliticize, we need to do it.
We need trustless, which is what people are searching for. We need decentralization, and whether we get to the point where it is completely that or not, because things are obviously cyclical, and you can start to move towards something and then still move away from it. There is still that period of moving towards it that will happen. The adoption is still going to increase to a point where we either decide, okay, we want full-blown mass adoption, or actually this isn't working as well as we wanted it to, and we'll probably move back towards a more trust-based system if things work out. I'm obviously in the camp that I think we move completely towards the decentralization, at least in the short term. But either whether we move towards it and move away, both the actions are still that way first. And so there's significant upside to gain if you're looking at it from a financial perspective. In the ecosystem. And when I say significant, like what we talk about now, what we talk about with Cardano, what we talk about with XRP, what we talk about with Sol, is having the mind share and trying to get to mass adoption. Mass adoption is where we see significant capital inflow. What we've seen right now is just like speculation on potential mass adoption in the future. What we're talking about is like putting 3 zeros or 2 to 3 zeros on the end of the market cap of crypto, and that's significant upside to anyone's project. And the higher you stay in the market cap share, the more obviously that is for your project. But I think that's just important for everyone to understand. Is like, I feel like for my content specifically, if you follow my content, for the last month or so, I've been worried about this pullback. I've been saying that I thought it was going to happen, but I don't want that to be lost, because I do think that the future, and I think that even the war probably exaggerates it in the medium term, is that the future is trustless and decentralized, and all these countries who are going to be like, do I trust you? Who's doing this? What's going on? Whether it escalates or not, we'll still start to lean into that.
I think
that space.
Depending on what happens, we'll either head towards a trustless system, or we'll head towards one where it doesn't matter if it's trustless or not. An individual's needs will will always be outweighed by the needs of the state and the nation,
Yeah, can I say?
i.e. communism.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. And can I say that, like, I think there'll be two parallel, at least to start with. I think that it'll be like the West and the East at some point, maybe not so defined, but ish. But they're still going to need a way to communicate and trade. They're still going to have cross trade. And in that, that's when, so whatever solution that you can think of in the short term, whether it's dollar loses strength, maybe the RMB gains strength, maybe it doesn't, but maybe there's another payments network that where they just do back end trade between different nations. There will still be a way for these to communicate, and that's the dollar for now. But if that does come to two completely parallel systems, there's still a way they're going to have to communicate, and that would be crypto. So that's one solution, and the other solution is it's crypto realistically anyway.
Yeah.
For now, that's as far as my brain goes.
I mean, yeah, your CBDCs that we've touched on in the past are like, that is for either side, the governments, the political sides, that is the apple in Eden, the programmable money. So I can see there will be a cryptographic blockchain type solution for either side to bring in, which will probably, you know, like one of the things we talked about earlier downstairs when I talk about Tesco club cards, it's the surveillance state. It's like, do I really want the government knowing that I'm gay before I do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, do I really want it to know that?
I feel like you don't want it to, but I feel like it already does anyway. So it doesn't really make a difference. Like,
what, know that I'm gay? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
because
I mean,
we're all human, Dave. We're all human.
Of course we are. I mean, yeah, and we can all say some funny shit.
Yeah, Canada is shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
quite funny because Matt's messaged me earlier, like, oh my God, that post has blown up. I was like, dude, it's like 75 comments. That's not even a standard.
That's just Cardano.
That's just Cardano.
My Cardano bags, I didn't hold much either. Like I said, they had like maybe $500 at 0.5 cent, but still I'd be caked today if obviously I'd held it.
Oh yeah, you'd have gone up massively, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
$250. Well,
What's it at now?
55 cents.
55
so
cents,
it'd have been 11x.
100 and something X.
100 and something.
Had a half cent.
110x.
Yeah.
110x.
It wouldn't be bad.
Well,
that was my first ever cycle in crypto. And held it all the way
that would have
now
been
from
six figs in your back pocket.
Yeah, from $500.
That'd have bought you about 3 pints of Guinness here in Dubai. Fucking robbing bastards. Yeah, man. Yeah, we could have spent that in a couple of days up at the Burj.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
If you go out for a drink here, like with a few of your mates.
Oh yeah, we're saying where we're like, we just paid what, $10 a pint?
Yeah,
No, £10. £10 a pint.
Yeah.
Even in London, that's
it's a lot
bad.
Yeah.
But here it's just like, that's quite cheap actually.
Yeah, no, actually that is cheap.
It is.
Like what we paid 94 dirhams for 2 pints, and like here you're lucky if you get it under 65 dirhams a pint. So like normally it's what, 120, 130 for 2 pints, I'd have thought, which is more like 12 to 14 pound a pint. And then we got 10.
Roughly.
And it was Peroni. Peroni's normally more, it's like the more.
Oh yeah, we didn't buy the cooking lager.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't buy the cooking lager. No,
Get a Carlin.
Yeah, we bought the Peroni, the expensive Italian rent boy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shave the top off with a knife.
Yeah. Whisper sweet nothings into your ear.
Your Tesco club card's got the prophecy right.
It fucking has, mate. It has, I tell you.
Anyway, what were you going to talk about? You're going to say Charles Hoskinson and RLUSD. That's what you're going to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously, looking at some positives, right? So
Did the
obviously,
lighting just change?
Yeah, they did, didn't they? It must be the guy in there must be controlling it.
Wow.
Must be that I was too ugly in the eye.
That really tripped my eyes out.
They've just gone back down again. They've gone from a purple to green.
Yeah, it's right.
That's okay. So RLUSD. So obviously there's Charles has been spouting out a lot recently. A lot of ideas, a lot of potential tie-ups, tie-ins. And one of them that's come out of it is for our stablecoin dilemma on Cardano. is to actually have a bridge for RLUSD. Obviously, as a Ripple, say XRP guy, is this something that you and your community are aware of or heard about?
I wouldn't say particularly that specific relationship with RLUSD and Cardano. I would say that there has been a sentiment shift from Charles Hoskinson towards what used to be. I don't know whether it was like he was trying to like provoke the XRP community, but when we had the SEC lawsuit, he definitely wasn't on the side of the XRP community. And then as the case progressed, he sort of like swung a little bit, and then there maybe was probing in the Cardano ecosystem from the SEC. I'm not sure. I could be making that part up, but like when we got to that point, all of a sudden Hoskinson was like, "Oh my god, it's like not right that you were investigating Ripple and XRP," and then it continued that sort of like it was almost like a positive narrative from Hoskinson towards Ripple, and then as, for example, well, just before Trump announced Ripple being not Ripple, XRP, Cardano, Sol, and there's one of them. Maybe what's the other one? There was 4, I think.
Yeah, there was.
ETH, probably. Yeah, it'll be ETH. But when Trump announced that, since then, it seems like our relationship's been getting like stronger and stronger. And obviously, there's been a lot around RLUSD, Ripple's stablecoin, essentially. RL being Ripple and USD being stablecoin. But I also think, from a completely speculative standpoint, I don't have any inside information on this, but Ripple is spending a lot of money behind the scenes with the Trump administration. However that might look, they're coming out the back of their lawsuit, and the stablecoin bill, the Genius bill, has been passed by the Senate last week and is waiting for confirmation from the House now. And there's a lot of speculation around the standards of different stablecoins, and Ripple's RLUSD seems to meet all the standards that people might want to be able to transact with. And so I think that, and it also isn't controlled by Coinbase, and they don't take a percentage of like the payments. So you're looking at basically Tether USDT, which has always been, for some reason, had like a bad air around it. And I know people who said that they knew that there was dodgy information about it, and then nothing happened. Or USDC, which is seen to have ticked all the boxes, but essentially owned by the cabal, which is basically Coinbase and the boys. And then now, or more of a new player being RLUSD coming onto the block, which seems to have ties with the administration. And also, like we talked about a lot earlier, with Cardano and XRP being these like dino coins that no one really likes, but all of a sudden they've been like banding together a little bit. So I feel like there is some sort of synergy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a bit of synergy would be good right now. I think getting together and helping to push back against some of the bullshit that's out there would be really good. I know I've said before, like, Pav's always like, you hate Solana, you hate Solana. It's just like, there's a difference between hating the entities behind a token and hating the community. You know, and ultimately a lot of the Solana community, the some of the state pool operators I've known for many years, nothing but respect for them. Everybody believes that their own coin is the future. Everybody believes that it's the answer. Most of them will actually accept the fact that actually none of them are perfect, and they all have their own downfalls. The worry is when people, for me, the worry is when those blatant shortfalls are not just ignored, but actively repressed. That's when you end up stagnating and going backwards. And I think, you know, what I say to people, like, perfection is not a destination, it's an aspiration. So if you think to yourself, right, if I get to this stage, I'm perfect, you are ultimately going to fail. Like, you just need to every day get up and do better. And I think this is the problem. Like, one of the things that has frustrated me to hell about Cardano is the slowness for everything. Even when the most high up people out there will turn around and say, we're frustrated because we should have done this by now. We should have achieved that by now. And it hasn't been achieved. And I think for me, what I like is on the one hand, like this RLUSD thing, I'm not sure if this is one of the Charles Hoskinson's Cardano ventures or Midnight Ventures. So Midnight is this new partner chain. That's supposedly somehow intrinsically linked to Cardano. I mean, I don't know enough about it, to be honest. Originally, there was certain points made that then was retracted about how it was intrinsically linked. Don't know what the final situation will be. Although, saying that, there is going to be a multi-chain airdrop of Night token, where...
Don't XRP holders get some of that?
I believe so.
So it's making that
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea how it's going to work, mate. It's supposed to be announced. In fact, I think, I may be wrong, I might be putting 2 and 2 together here and getting 10.
That's how it works for me normally.
So I think there was some sort of midnight get together with some KOLs and a few others last week. Well, you wouldn't have done, mate, because you're not that K. You're more of an O and less L.
Okay.
Like me.
Yeah.
We're just an O.
Yeah, just a guy.
Ticker is O, by the way.
There's probably optimism, that isn't it?
Optimism.
Yeah. Or is that OP? I don't know.
It's Optim Finance, mate. Yeah. Because
is it on Cardano?
It's caused a lot of... It's a I won't go there.
It's a rug, is what you're trying to say, but you're not telling anyone it is a rug.
No. It's a decent protocol. Yeah, let's just say that they may have financially delegated their ADA power to a DREP, which is anti-Charles. Therefore, the whole community have gone against it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, ticker is O, by the way. No, so I think... I can't remember what we're talking about. Basically...
Midnight. We're talking about Midnight and the...
Yeah, Midnight. So I can't remember. He reckons something like 32 million people are going to get some Midnight token airdrop to them. So, I had this at Token 2049, you know when the girls are out doing the whole... going around the event, doing surveys and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, discover Cardano. Why are you pushing Cardano still? Even your founders created a new chain and left you for Midnight. It's not how it is. And to be fair, he's obviously pushed the whole narrative of like, I'm not going anywhere.
It's like a privacy. What's Midnight? Like a privacy chain or something?
Yeah, some sort of privacy chain. Although I imagine if
I don't know anything about Cardano or Midnight.
No. So it's going to be a partner chain. So we're not calling them L2s. We're calling them partner chains.
Okay.
And effectively the SPOs, the validators for Cardano will, I guess, automatically be validators for Midnight as well. I get the impression that maybe Midnight has not been Haskell developed. I don't think the code for Midnight is Haskell. It's probably Rust. Do you know what I mean? It's probably more...
Mate, that goes over my head. So
yeah.
When you're saying things to me that I don't understand. Don't speak that language. I don't speak dev language.
No. So effectively, I think the way that these built Midnight is more in line with the likes of the Solanas of the world. Okay. It's using a different programming language, a different base layer.
Yeah. I mean, I got the idea that it was a programming language. I just don't know anything about the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Haskell is effectively like what a lot of institutional educational colleges will learn. Like if you go to do a degree in computer programming, the chances are you've come across Haskell. Haskell's like a old, like 1980s, I think, programming language, but it's very, very secure, very predictable. It's very basic. Whereas Rust is very powerful.
What you play 1v1 snipers on? That's all I know about Rust.
Is it 1v1
Yeah, Modern
sniper?
Warfare 2, 1v1 snipers.
Is that what? Is that
Meet
what
me on
Rust?
Rust.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's not. Nah, that's not. Yeah, that's not Rust, the programming language.
Obviously not.
Yeah.
It's me with an intervention going. "Ba-ding!"
I was always more of a Battlefield guy, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That says a lot
loved
about you, though,
Battlefield.
Dave. That does. I'm gonna lie.
Yeah,
Says a lot
well,
about
there's
you.
a lot that says a lot about me. To be fair, I say a lot about me.
So
No,
does
no,
your
I
Tesco
always
club
preferred.
card.
Yeah, well, my Tesco club card. Yeah, that would definitely tell you I was a Battlefield guy. Yeah, I always preferred, but like I started off, I loved Modern Warfare.
Yeah. The first one.
Yeah, the first
That's
one.
in COD 4.
Yeah, COD 4.
Yeah, banging game.
Banging game. And then it's when it went down the first special ops route, I was just like, Battlefield 2, I think, was out then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 2. And it's from that point onwards, I just gravitated more towards Battlefield as a game. I
They
think
were
I
kind of
preferred them.
competing for a bit, weren't they?
But they were different. Like so when we got to special ops and shit, it was like really small. Like I'd spawn, and before I'd even took a step forward, I'd be shot. Do you know what I mean? There were smaller maps. It was more about spray and play. When Battlefield kept the whole bigger maps, working more on tactical in teams, I just preferred it for that reason, really.
Yeah, I think Battlefield was good. It just wasn't as fluid. Like, it wasn't as easy to play. Like, as in, it felt clunky when you played it. But
Yeah,
I
there
think
was definitely-
idea,
Yeah,
the idea of Battlefield I really resonate with, but like the playability,
Dude.
fucking, it's like crypto. Man. The idea and the concept of it's good, but it's just fucking difficult to use. And then one of them, it's just really easy to use and play, and you pick up like Solana. Maybe the difference between Solana and Cardano. Solana is really easy to pick up and play, whereas Cardano, the idea is really good, but it's quite difficult to use, or at least the idea is not sold very well.
No, I agree. I think, we were saying earlier, I showed you tap tools. And you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's like, yeah, but no one on Solana would give a shit about this because it's just like, first of all, there's more than 4 lines of text. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not interested. They all just want to press a button. Yeah, give me the money. Show me the money. Done. Boom. Whereas, like, tap tools is very analytical, very like a lot of data in there, but it's presented in such a great way. The thing that annoys me though, mate, to be honest, is a lot of the people in Solana, a lot of the people that have moved to Solana, have moved there from Ethereum. And I think all of the things that made Solana attractive to them, the L2s are pretty catching up with pretty quickly.
That's always been my argument. What you don't need, I'm not going to name specifics, but you don't need 50 L2s and Sol. Like,
No.
they all do the same fucking thing. It's always been my argument. Are we going to shit on Sol a bit now?
Go for it, mate.
Yeah,
Go
a little
for
bit.
it.
This is I've got a conspiracy about Solana, okay?
Go on.
It's going to get me a lot of hate online, but it is what it is. I've said it a few times before.
You've got 20 minutes. Go for it.
Fucking hell, it ain't going to take that long. I just find a few things convenient about Sol. I'm not going to name any names, but there's obviously a big VC interest in Solana, and there has been, and there was a lot of tokens sold for not a lot to people who are in places of power, both in the ecosystem, but also in terms of like marketing. So that's the first thing I'll say. That's obvious. We can all look at the unlocks on Sol. We can still see they're unlocking tokens now. We can see that from Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX as well. Massive vested interest in Solana. And then obviously when FTX crashed, Sol crashed.
Yeah.
All makes sense, obviously. The thing that I then, on a non-technical level, don't, as much as we've just talked about that I would say pretty much all the ETH L2s do exactly the same thing as Sol. And I'm not dev-based, but from an idiot's perspective on the outside, the L2s and Sol do the same thing. They basically make smart contracts have like a lot of transactions per second, don't they? That's my understanding. And so you don't need 50 of them if you include the L2s, or 20 of them if you include the L2s and Sol. But why is it that Sol rallied from $8 to $180 or whatever it was so far this cycle, when they had bills to billionaires to pay for the FTX estate. And the only real reason they gained attention was something that was completely taboo and was called out by everyone to say, like, this is the most stupid thing in crypto, being meme coins, that brought the attention to Sol this cycle. I've always said that I thought Sol was suspicious because of that. Like, the easiest marketing tool you could probably ever create was meme coins. Everyone said how stupid Doge was. Like, I can remember in 2019 cycle, everyone saying, like, don't buy Doge, it's completely ridiculous. And, like, yes, now it has a space in the crypto space, and it's stuck around, and a lot of things, if they have staying power, they do well because they create ecosystems, just like Cardano, just like XRP, just like Doge. But why did Sol really blow up from $8 to $180? Was it just because FTX needed paying out?
I was in a trading group on Discord. It was a guy called All In Crypto, a UK guy, Brummy, great guy. He announced he was going to have like a Patreon channel, Discord channel, and I was like, I like this guy. I'll chuck like $10 a month, whatever it was, in support him, because he always covered more than macro. He was never Cardano maxi, but he covered a lot of Cardano. He liked Cardano, but he'd cover a lot. And this is like the last 3 years. But then what I always found strange, I was in Singapore when that was the time, I think, or roughly around that time, was when I was pointing out some suspicious crap on Sol.
I remember that day. That was a weird day. I was out on a night out, actually.
Were you?
In Bali. I was in Bali with Mats.
Yeah, in
Funnily
Bali.
enough, I was in Bali with Mats, and we were out with some lads who had YouTube channel. They were like YouTube. You know how Mats does YouTube automation as well?
Yeah.
They were big YouTube automation guys. Like, one of them has the biggest Elon Musk channel in the world, so massive. They like make fucking loads of money. Some of them had their own channels, and we're out on a night out. And I remember looking at it and like seeing the news, and the market's crashing, obviously. And then you're seeing like all these like panicky messages coming out of Caroline and then Sam and CZ, then saying, "Oh, we're gonna bail them out," and then we're not gonna bail them out. And I was thinking, this is crazy. Like, this is like fairy tale, not fairy tale, but like soap opera sort of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then ends up coming out that like Bankman Fried's been like commingling funds and all this sort of stuff. And then Sol goes to 8. And that's what I'm saying is like, but the reason that Sol's suspicious, it goes that low. But so many people, whoever they are, had so much money invested in Sol, but also in FTX. And it's somehow, during the bear market, when nothing else rallied all the way back up to the day that FTX started their payments, and then it's now started to decrease again.
Outages aside, for the tech, for the amount of effort that and success they'd had up to that point of actually bringing developers on board in India and elsewhere, and building up like the people like Mats and getting them, and even building up the SPOs, like 8 was very oversold. It was not by any stretch of the imagination a genius play for people like Ran and the other KOLs to say $8, I'm going to get me a bit of that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, it's not me sitting here saying I hate Solana.
No.
I'm not saying
it's suspicious still though.
Yeah, I think. But you don't have to say that.
You don't have to be suspicious of the community or the builders to say there's funny shit behind the scenes. There's plenty of people behind all these projects.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
There is with ETH, just there probably is with Cardano, there is with XRP, probably. But like, we don't know for sure, but like, just an external perspective. And it doesn't mean that I hate any of them.
You can look at any chain and most people will be like,
it's kind of sus.
Really, what makes your ecosystem worth $25 billion?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. But then it's recognizing, okay, well, maybe I'm the dickhead. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the reality of the situation. Sure. Like, maybe I'm the one that should actually realize that I'm in the wrong room, rather than pointing everybody out in this room. Like, I think it's quite funny because we were talking earlier down in Pizza Express. Shout out Pizza Express.
Shout out. Peroni, it's good Peroni there.
Good Peroni.
But Dave don't drink it today. He's just tired.
Yeah, I'm not really drinking. To be fair, and you wanted a mimosa, mate. I'm not eating.
Matt's wants a mimosa. Long live Matt.
Yeah, long live Matt's. They're in cans, aren't they now?
No, they're not actually right now.
No,
Matt's in Norway right now.
Matt's is back in Norway. When's cans next week?
Yeah.
All right, okay, cool. I got a shiver down my spine thinking Norway then.
What? Cold.
It made it cold. Yeah, cold. No, I think one thing I was saying earlier is like, at the end of the day, there's very, very few investors or powerful people in crypto that could really make it in a regulated real world environment, and that's why I think we've ended up with half of the shit we have, like half of the bullshit, the regulations, the TVL metrics and all that we were talking about earlier. Like, in what crazy world do we live in where we think that having, for example, like $10 billion of TVL on chain, when you've only got, say, 500 million a day going through it,
what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
That capital efficiency is a fucking thing. Like, we should be, that it's not a good thing. You should be saying, well, I need to take at least 8 mil of this and stick it elsewhere. Do you know what I mean? I need to be using this for something else. But it's the world we live in. Like, a lot of people don't know how to use the money, so they'll stick it in. They'll increase the TVL accordingly with it and say, I'm a genius and this is a good thing. It's like, no, you just don't know how to use the money you got.
Yeah.
Whereas in Cardano, we just don't have no money. We've got 3 entities that had a very, very different idea back in the day of how funds should be split to develop an ecosystem, and we're now currently feeling the downside of that decision. Look at Solana, like we were saying in the last episode about how Solana's good at marketing and everything else. The foundation not only got a much bigger percentage of the funds from the ICO, but Tolly, and this is the other thing, like, I don't know Tolly, obviously, but generally I do feel he's just a guy who just wants to build the best kick-ass fucking blockchain he can.
I agree.
I think a lot of the SBF stuff really pissed him off, and there was not really anything that he could do or say about it because he didn't give a crap about it. I think he's an ex-Nvidia or whatever he is guy who just
trying to build something
that's the best he can build it and build it as quick as possible and everything else. All of the bullshit, all of the crap, I don't think is attributed to him.
No, I agree.
I'm glad that he's laid off the monster a bit though. Yeah.
And I think that Sol's net positive for the crypto space. It's kind of like there's not really much that competes with ETH and ETH02s. And like, I know we've talked about this, but I think we do need at least some deviation from ETH02s because otherwise ETH's just got control.
I would say it's been a net positive for those on ETH that were looking to get out of ETH and couldn't bring themselves to look at a UTXO model or XRP or anything else. Like,
but I do think there has to be some competition because that's how you can decide what's good and what's bad.
Well, yes, let's just say a lot of the Ethereum community, right, who back in 2017, 18, 19 stuck around, reinvested. They did extremely well in 2020, 2021. How many of them has the L2 ecosystem benefited? None.
Yeah, none.
There's nothing there for them because at the end of the day, what are you going to do? You're going to go from the whole reason why you got into Ethereum in the first place and then go, oh, yeah, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to chuck all my funds onto Base. No, you ain't going to do that. A multi-sig. Do you know what I mean? Like, you ain't going to do it. So you're going, okay, what's the next best thing? Well, actually, Solana seems to be pretty cool. It's a lot faster than Ethereum. There seems to be more opportunity. There seems to be a bigger community there or a big enough community for me to try and build something up. And that's the thing. I think what Solana did was it brought in or it attracted that demographic of Ethereum users pretty nicely. Cardano alienated itself from anything like that back in 2020, 2021, to be honest. I started off in ETH and I moved to Cardano, but for very different reasons and probably about 6 months before the bull market.
I want to ask you a question then, Dave.
Go on.
5 minutes off topic, or maybe not. What do you think the world looks like you can pick any time frame, 5, 10, 20 years. What do you think the world looks like in one of those time frames? And you can pick the one that you think you're most not necessarily confident, but you'd like to give your opinion on.
What did I say last episode? Big up Ziping, my man.
My brother.
Yeah, my brother. I don't think anyone in power currently has any desire whatsoever to hand that power over to the masses or authority. Yeah, power or authority. They won't do it, mate.
What price is Bitcoin at in 5 years, Dave? Or what price?
420,000.
Oh yes, sausage dog. That's what my granddad used to say.
Sausage dog.
Oh yeah, sausage dog.
I think 420. Yeah, 420.
420, yeah,
420.
Yeah,
no.
420 in 5 years.
We're going to be 5 years' time. Should be the next round of peak bull.
I think. Yeah, I'd say 500. 500 seems pretty solid, but I think we could do that this cycle. Possible. I might. Let's just get it out there. You guys know who watch my content. 150 to 180 has been my base case. The longer we've consolidated in this range, I think we go to 180 to 220. But I do think 500 this cycle is possible, especially as geopolitical events kick off like they are, and everyone gets a bit more uncertain of each other. I think it makes it more likely that we see 500 towards.
Let me ask you a question. At what point do, if at all, do you feel that instead of investing in Bitcoin, people decide to invest in silver and gold instead?
From our from our world,
generation.
Depends if they come on chain. I think the issue with gold, Bitcoin, and silver is that Bitcoin is just actually pretty easy to buy for people from our generation. They just download an app and click buy, and they actually own the Bitcoin itself. I think that makes a difference. Whereas gold, you just buy like paper rights or ETF or whatever. I think if you could buy physical gold easily,
well, you can.
I know you can, but you can, but no one really trusts it, do they? That's the reason why I haven't. But that's one of the things I would not be against diversifying into is gold.
Well, I'm gold and silver as well.
Yeah, I don't hold anything apart from crypto really.
No.
So I don't know the answer to that question.
By mistake, obviously, when I moved out here, I bought some of my coins with me, and then when I flew to Paris last week, Paris Air Show, I was like, I thought I'd empty my bag out, and I hadn't. And then when I was putting my passport in the front pocket, I was like, "What the hell's that?" I was like, oh, sovereign coin.
You're not allowed to carry that cross border.
No, I was okay, but right, because I booked the Paris Air Show so late, I was on the front row, which means there was nowhere to put your bag underneath at the front.
Worried about your
and also, by the time I got on, my bag had to go right to like the back of that section of the plane. Yeah. There was no space on there, so I was like,
That's what I feel about taking my ledger on the plane and that. I know
your ledger, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Your ledger. It's just got XRP on it.
Yeah, no one wants it. I do feel like that about it. I feel like, even though I know that no one's going to do anything with that specific ledger, but I do think like, I'd wear it. I wear like a man bag. Like I've got down there and just wear it.
Yeah, man. Oh, do you know what?
With my phones and that.
Although I still got my Nano X. How do you feel about them, ledgers?
I don't trust any of it, bro. But what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
That's my issue.
Yeah. So there are others out there, but I know what you're saying.
I don't trust them anymore, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Or less. Like it's just they're all in the same ballpark. They're all just hardware wallets for me. Like Ledger has done me well so far, but I have seen people have horror stories with them. I've spoke to Tangem, I've spoke to Trezor, I've spoke to a few other companies.
Elipal?
No.
Keystone?
Keystone, yeah. They sent me a personalised 8 wallet.
Yeah.
But then I never ever plugged it into my PC because what I thought to myself is they literally themselves have sent me a personalised 8 wallet, so they know exactly who I am, what I'm plugging in. And so I actually messaged them and said, do you know what, after thinking about this, I really want to say thank you, and I'm not really this guy, but I don't want to plug it into my PC. That's the issue in the space, isn't it? I'm not savvy enough to understand if it's going to do something or not do something.
Yeah.
And
I mean, one of the things I like about Elipal, and this isn't a plug on Elipal at all. I mean, I quite like the actual design of it. They've got a Nano out now as well. You can go on GitHub and it's relatively open sourced. You know, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But I quite like the fact that it's completely air gapped. Like that, you don't plug anything in direct to computer. There's no Bluetooth. It just purely works off of QR codes.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Tantrum cards are quite cool like that as well. I've not used one,
Yeah,
but I've got some that I've never set.
yeah.
I've got some that I've never set up
Yeah.
that they gave me again. Like, it's fucking difficult, isn't it? Like that's why I just don't trust anything, bro. That's the problem in the space. Is I think that's an important lesson for everyone watching. Is you just your base case, although it's not an easy case to have, is just don't trust anything, because if you fuck up one time, you lose your money.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, okay, we've got 5 minutes left. XRP on the main chain, like, are there applications, or is it mostly like just a settlement layer?
It's mostly a settlement layer, but there are some applications, not ones that I particularly use myself. And the thing that the XRP ledger has that not a lot of people really understand is that it was the first ever chain to have a native DEX. So it does have a DEX inbuilt in native L1. Not that it's used that much by the community, but it obviously gives some option for at least order books to be processed.
What is it that you can put? Like, what tokens do you have?
You can swap any token to any token that's on the XRP ledger.
So is there plenty of like meme coins and stuff on?
There are now. Like,
Yeah.
there's more, and that's one of the things. Like, one of the metrics that really upticked before XRP rallied in November of last year, or whenever it was, October, was the amount of activity on the network, and then that was a big uptick, and then the price moved as well. And you can say they're correlated or not, I don't know, but there was a correlation. You can at least draw on that. The thing that was cool, and I might do a disservice to the people who are more technical than me, that I understand about XRP is the way that it like uses liquidity. It's like, say gold was tokenized on the XRP ledger and dollars were, and XRP, the three different things that two different people or three different people might want to trade. One person wants gold for XRP,
Yeah.
one person wants dollars for XRP, one person wants dollars for gold. It basically does this, like, it's called like pathfinding, where it will search for those three different transactions and settle them between each other using the DEX.
Okay, so like each of those users will create an intent, and
Yeah.
then there'll be a beacon such on the chain to say, right, this is what I'm after, and then something on chain will be like, okay,
That
I
person
found your
wants this.
matchmate. Yeah. Okay, interesting.
And that's a pretty cool feature to the ledger. And like at the minute, there's a few different features being built. So Axelar are a company, actually their founder's based in Dubai. I spoke to him on my podcast. They are creating a bridge between Ethereum and XRP for RLUSD, as we discussed, with zero slippage. So you can swap it from the ETH mainnet to the XRP ledger for zero slippage, supposedly, and pretty much instantly, which is pretty cool. They also basically are helping the XRP ledger. There's another company called Peersis that are helping create the EVM sidechain. So the XRP ledger is launching like a Ethereum virtual machine sidechain at the minute, and the gas token on the EVM sidechain is XRP. So there are a few weird and wonderful developments that go over my head mostly, that are coming to the XRP ledger that are creating hype around the network, as well as the ETF and potentially the end of the SEC lawsuit.
Yeah. So with XRP, it's not UTXO.
No, I don't think so. That's what Cardano is, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a few. There's like UTXO. I think it's Algorand, Bitcoin.
Solidity, is it? That one?
No, Solidity's Ethereum EVM. So you've got Cardano, Algorand, Bitcoin.
Yeah, the Algorand. You know Algorand?
Ergo. Yeah, Algorand.
He's the guy who's making
Clever guy.
Axelar. He's one of the co-founders of Algorand.
Is he?
Yeah.
Right, I can't remember his name now, but yeah, some
He's called
Italian guy or something, or Argentinian.
Yogia or something.
Yeah, I can't
There's
remember.
three of them. There's three Algorand co-founders, and he was one of them. I think it was his dorm mate who actually made it, and he was the co-founder or something like that.
Nice.
And now he's doing Axelar, and Axelar like a cross.
Well, Algorand, I think, was the chain that signed that commercial deal with the FIFA World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah, and I bought some of their NFTs.
Yeah, and then
And they didn't go anywhere.
didn't go anywhere.
But they were cool though. It's a
Yeah,
cool concept.
Qatar pulled out. Oh yeah, of course it was. That's the annoying thing in a way, is that there's been some pretty cool stuff that has been done by a chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, a random chain, but it's never stuck.
Like Sui's done Pokemon recently, but it was just at the wrong time.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of this stuff we've not quite landed properly yet. The execution hasn't quite been right. I think everyone's learning in the ecosystem, and I think we've still got some way to go. So yeah, wrapping up, we've got probably about 2 minutes left. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
thanks for
I
having me.
love having you on, and hopefully people will watch this and see a different side to us, I guess. I know we've talked about Solana, we've talked about XRP, and talked about a little bit about Cardano. What else in the sort of the crypto industry are you sort of excited about going forwards for the next sort of like 6 months to 12 months?
If I'm going to be completely and absolutely honest, I think we're going to see an alt season, and I think most alts are going to rise in value. And I'm talking about from a financial perspective, because most of my channel is